So today we wanted to talk a little bit about how complicated it is to decide whether or not to disclose you have schizophrenia, when to do it, who to do it to. It's just a very sort of loaded thing to disclose.
So, honey, you were in psychosis for about 9 or 10 months. So you were away from your social circle for quite a while. But one of the first things that you wanted to do when you were in recovery was to reach out to them. So how did that go for you?
Well, I had a lot of Facebook messages and texts and things that were like, what happened to you? Where have you been? Like, should I come over to your house? I'm worried about you. And so I was just answering those. And I basically just told people like, yeah, I had a serious medical issue, but I'm better now. And I just, I think I did have some anxiety, but I really am just a social person, and just my desire to resume my social life sort of outweighed that. But yeah, it was about 2 weeks, I would say, between when I came out of psychosis and when I started seeing friends again.
And what was it like? Like, how did people react when you told them what had happened?
Well, at the time I told people I had bipolar disorder because that was my understanding of my diagnosis, and it later got changed to schizoaffective disorder. And I think bipolar disorder is less stigmatized, so people were by and large sort of on board with it. It was just weird to explain, like, yeah, I spent 9 months in a hyper reality where like psychologists were controlling my life and experimenting on me against my will. It's just like hard to explain to people. So yeah, it definitely had a few weird conversations, but by and large my friends were very supportive.
So we know there's a lot of misunderstandings and lack of information about psychosis out there. So did your friends have a lot of questions? Did they feel comfortable asking you? Did you mind them asking you questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had a lot of questions, but they didn't really ask me a lot. They probably just didn't want to make me uncomfortable, which I really appreciate, because like sometimes people ask you questions like you're a freak at a freak show, when you have schizophrenia. And I don't think my friends would have asked me insensitive questions like that, but it's just hard, like, to just be asked all these questions, have people be so curious about you. It just makes you feel so othered and different.
So I would say it was a pretty good experience for you getting back in touch with your old crew, but I know it was harder for you when you started interacting with people that you didn't already know and trying to decide whether to tell them. So you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, as I started to sort of make new friends and just meet new people as time went on, it wasn't like I had like anxiety before I disclosed, but I would disclose and then constantly be like, was that too soon? Did that weird them out? Was that like too personal of a thing to share? And it was a little bit more complicated because sometimes people wouldn't really know what to say, and I could tell they didn't really know what to say, and they'd just sort of stammer in their response, and like I just sort of interpreted this rather ambiguous social signal as like they hate me, they're judging me, and things like that. And it's so hard because like for so long recovery was my full-time job, and my entire identity basically was my mental illness, and yet I couldn't tell people about it, or it was just awkward to tell people about it, and that just put me in a really tough position.
One of the things that struck me is that you told me that you'd always been pretty confident socially. You've always been sort of extroverted and had a lot of friends. And one of the things you shared with me is that some of that confidence is gone now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm still building it back. I hope it's not gone forever, but it's just weird. It's just like hard to tell people. It's hard to figure out when to tell people. And like, I've definitely been in situations where I think I should have disclosed but didn't, and that made for an awkward situation. Like, for example, someone was like, so what was the health issue you just spent 2 years recovering from? And I'd just be like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. And then that was just sort of off-putting to them. And I think I've also had the opposite, where like I've been like, I have schizophrenia, and they've been like, what? Like, that came out of nowhere. Like, why are you telling me that? And it's just hard. Like, part of me felt like I lost my ability to judge social situations because it's so hard to make that decision about whether or not to disclose.
So you had left a job when you became ill, and so one of the first things you did was to start looking for a new job. And did you tell prospective employers about your mental health condition?
No, and I still haven't told my employer now that I've been working full-time for 8 months. Like, I receive no accommodations at my job. I haven't told HR. Absolutely nobody knows, because I'm just that afraid of discrimination. I've just, not in regards to this mental health issue, but in relation to a different mental health issue, I've had people sort of find that out about me and use it to like tell me I wasn't a good employee or invalidate me in some way, and I'm just afraid of that happening again.
What about in a dating situation?
I haven't told people yet. I'm taking a break from dating right now, but when I was dating earlier, I didn't feel comfortable telling people. But I think now when I go back to dating, I'm going to be more open about it, because it's just, I don't know, kind of like what I was saying. Like, I think it can be off-putting if you're like, oh, I just spent 2 years overcoming this huge health challenge, but like, I'm not going to tell you what it is. So I think I'm going to, yeah, try to put myself out there a little bit more and give people the benefit of the doubt and think like maybe they won't judge me.
So do you have any advice for people who may have just found out that someone they care about has schizophrenia or some other mental health condition?
Yeah, just treat them like normal. Like, don't pity them. Like, that's something that really bugs me, is when people act in this very pitying way. Don't give them special treatment, but also don't stigmatize them. Just like treat them as you otherwise would.
And looking back on it, is there anything that you would have done differently as you were rebuilding a social circle?
Definitely. Like I was saying, there are times I wish I had disclosed and I didn't, and there are times I wish I hadn't disclosed and when I did. But I'm just trying to be really kind to myself. Like, it was always going to be a bumpy road to sort of come out as schizophrenic. It was never going to be easy. And there were going to be times where I feel like I messed up or made the wrong decision. And so I'm just trying to practice self-compassion and be really nice to myself about it.
And for you parents out there, the one thing I would say is don't push your child to do something that they're not ready to do. In my experience, you always knew when you were comfortable doing it, and you didn't need me pushing you along on that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't always know when I was comfortable doing it. Like I said, there are some times when I disclosed, but I wish I hadn't, and vice versa. But yeah, I mean, I personally chose to be very open about it with my friends, and I didn't really need you to push me to do that.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us for this conversation, and we hope to see you back here soon.